Topping today's news, just hours ahead of news time, police were called to the scene of the country's latest murder in the Westridge area. A police-involved shooting on the weekend leaves a teenage armed robbery suspect dead. Prime Minister Davis speaks loud and bold at the United Nations on challenges being faced by the Bahamas and other countries in the region. And the kidnapped employee from the Bahamas Embassy in Haiti has been released. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jareno Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Police are aggressively searching for the suspect or suspects responsible for the murder of a Caucasian male. This incident occurred in a Western New Providence condominium complex located on Atlantic Drive in the Westridge area. Here's Police Press Liaison Superintendent Skippings with more on this latest homicide.
It was around 10:30 this morning when co-workers alerted police that they did not hear from a co-worker. Hence, police, along with the property manager here, breached the condominium occupied by the deceased, and once on the inside, discovered a Caucasian male who appears to be in his early 60s with multiple lacerations to the body.
The deceased, an expat from the United Kingdom, is believed to have been in the condo for at least a day prior to being discovered by officers. Police say early investigations show no signs of intrusion or robbery that took place. As a result, officers are not able to give a motive at this time. However, CCTV was present and is expected to assist police in their investigations. Meanwhile, police are appealing to members of the public who may have any information regarding this incident to contact them at the Criminal Investigations Department. A fatal police-involved shooting on Saturday claimed the life of a teenage male. The exchange of gunfire unfolding in the area of Washington Street north of Cordell Avenue shortly after 3 p.m. Here is Police Press Liaison Chief Superintendent Chrislyn Skippings with more details on that incident.
Officers today were responding to an armed robbery when they saw a vehicle fitting the description of the vehicle involved in the armed robbery in the immediate area. Officers attempted to stop the vehicle, however, the vehicle sped off. One of the males in the vehicle exited the vehicle. He engaged police officers and he was fatally wounded.
According to Chief Superintendent Skippings, the victim, who is believed to be in his late teens, was armed with a firearm along with ammunition, which was recovered from the deceased on the scene. Chief Superintendent Skippings also noting that a substantial amount of cash was recovered from the victim, believed to be taken during an armed robbery. It is on this backdrop police are warning those who try to challenge officers to not do so, as police will use the necessary force they see fit to protect themselves and the wider community.
At this time, I would wish to speak to those persons who seem to want to engage in lawless behavior in our country. The police will remain firm, we will be resolute, and we will continue to preserve this country for the good citizens of it. Those persons who seek to engage in criminal activity, those who seek to engage the police will protect the good citizens, and the police officers will protect themselves, as they too have families that they have to go home to. And so I encourage those who engage in lawless behavior to seek ways to correct those behaviors, because as a law enforcement agency, we're going to do just what it is that we're going to do.
Chief Superintendent Skippings further urging those who may be in possession of a firearm to turn those weapons into the police. Meanwhile, Criminal Investigation Division Chief Superintendent Johnson gave reports and updates on the double shooting that took place last Monday during a grill out through Lucky Heart Corner, which left 2 men in hospital.
2 persons were shot in that particular incident which occurred on Monday, and one of those persons have since succumbed to their injuries. So that is now a homicide investigation. We are following significant leads into that matter and hope to bring some resolution to that investigation pretty shortly.
With regards to the stabbing homicide that took place last week Wednesday on Pilgrim Avenue in the Boyd Road area, Chief Superintendent Johnson says that investigation is ongoing. Officer Johnson says police are following significant leads into the matter, adding that police had someone in custody. However, that person was subsequently released. He says officers are confident with their investigation into this matter and are still seeking to uncover the motive. While speaking on mental illness during a side event for spouses of CARICOM Action Network at the 77th United Nations General Assembly in New York last week, spouse of the Prime Minister, Anne-Marie Davis, noted that suicides are on the rise here in the Bahamas and must be addressed. Well, on the weekend, police found themselves investigating an alleged attempted suicide by an American visitor to the country. Investigations indicate that shortly before 10 p.m. on Saturday, officers responded to reports of a Caucasian female who ingested an excessive amount of medication in an attempt to commit suicide at a local resort on Western Bay Street. EMS personnel were summoned and rendered medical assistance. Presently, the visitor is being monitored. Active police investigations continue there as well. Prime Minister Philip Davis attending several high-level meetings at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, where leaders from around the world deliberate and make policies. And while at the Assembly in New York last week, Prime Minister Davis attended, like we said, several meetings, and he had a number of powerful statements that some may find controversial but timely. We hear more in this next report by Cale Campbell.
Black-governed countries also matter.
That was Prime Minister Philip Davis speaking on the country's behalf at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly held in New York, where he shared the Bahamian perspective on an international scale as it relates to issues such as climate change, the need for major financial reform, regional issues of Haiti and Cuba, among other things. The Prime Minister reiterated the need to hold first world countries accountable for their contribution towards the current climate change issues the world faces, particularly how it affects developing states like the Bahamas.
Why should small island nations like mine, we who have contributed so little to the climate crisis, experience the biggest burdens and risk of a climate changing world? The argument might be straightforward, but it has not been effective. For a long time, decision makers in both the public and private sectors believed that climate action must come at the expense of economic growth. But now, many are beginning to understand that climate inaction is the most expensive option of all. Taking action is not just in the interests of those of us who are particularly vulnerable. It is in the interest of every country, and it is this enlightened self-interest that should motivate action. The good news is that there are also positive incentives. Transitioning to clean energy is going to create jobs, increase efficiencies, and improve living standards.
Prime Minister Davis also addressed the Bahamas being placed on the blacklist by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, stating the action as being, quote, profoundly unfair, while supporting the call for, quote, reforms in the global financial system to make it more relevant to the needs of today. The Prime Minister noted that European countries which operate similar to, quote, high-risk and blacklisted countries are not even eligible to make the list.
Why are all the countries targeted? All of them, small and vulnerable, and former colonies of European states. We find it astounding that the $2 to $3 trillion, which is estimated to be laundered each year through the developed countries, are never flagged as causes for concern. And yet my country, which is widely recognized as one of the best regulated countries in the world, and other countries like the Bahamas are singled out for such reputational attacks. The robust regulatory regimes of our central bank, Securities Commission, and Insurance Commission are chastised on minor details of technical process, while much bigger transgressions in the developed world are ignored. The evidence is mounting that the considerations behind these decisions have less to do with compliance and more to do with the darker issues of prejudged discriminatory perceptions.
Now, as it relates to regional issues, the Prime Minister says that instability in Haiti since the assassination of their president is a threat to the whole Caribbean region, while also restating the Bahamas' opposition to the decade-long embargo and sanctions on Cuba. Prime Minister Davis says migration is not the only regional issue that the Bahamas is dealing with.
We are also struggling from the proliferation of guns. We do not manufacture guns in our country, and yet they illegally find their way to the Bahamas, and within days can be connected to some criminal activity. In an archipelagic nation made up of some 700 islands and keys, range across 100,000 square miles of water, defending our borders is an expensive challenge. We believe more manageable and effective efforts can be made at the source to ensure that a right to bear arms does not so quickly and easily translate into a right to traffic arms.
Prime Minister Davis says the needs and rights of small island developing states cannot be sustained by making advances in policy only in times of global shock. Further speaking of the Bahamas' gratitude to the Alliance of Small Island Developing States' work on the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index, which he considers, quote, a critical step forward in ensuring greater equity for countries such as the Bahamas. For Jcn News, I'm Cale Campbell.
Thanks for that report, Cale. And finally, in this segment, before leaving the 77th General Assembly of the United Nations in New York, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Public Service Fred Mitchell talked about the way forward for the Bahamas following the Assembly.
Welcome back home to Prime Minister Philip Davis after a stellar performance at the United Nations, knocked the ball out of the park with the line, "Black-governed nations matter." This was part of his answer to the unfair, discriminatory, and I say racist policies of the European Union and the OECD in their application of financial rules against the former colonies. In a word, it is despicable. Now we must continue to lobby for a level playing field and to seek a global standard at the United Nations instead of European nations arrogating to themselves the will of God in financial services matters.
Prime Minister Davis also spoke about the challenge the Bahamas and other countries in the region faces in regards to gun trafficking. He pledged to support multilateral efforts to address this problem. Meanwhile, Mr. Mitchell says following the General Assembly, there is a lot of follow-up work that needs to be done, including building a stronger presence in New York.
It is most important for the diaspora in New York to be reorganized. Our permanent secretary went to have a look at Bahamas House up in Harlem and the premises there in an effort to have that house become a true center of Bahamian pride and culture so that there will be a strong and tangible presence of Bahamians in the city of New York in that brownstone in Harlem bought in 1947.
We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.
Now, I know I've said it before, but this time, I swear it's different. Grammy dreamed about this number, so I won't lose. I can't lose. This is my last time. Please, son, just give me one more chance. I'll give it all back to you.
Excessive gaming affects more than just the gamer. This message has been brought to you by the Gaming Board for the Bahamas, which encourages you to game responsibly.
Problem gambling and addiction has many faces. You never really know you have a problem until it has overtaken you. You just keep on making excuses. You could be down to your last dollar and listen to that voice that tells you you might just hit one big number or even a lucky spin. Before you know it, you begin chasing your losses and borrowing money from your friends, family, and even strangers. The next thing you know, you are using the money for your rent or electricity bill. Then when you become so desperate, it's the children's school fees, lunch that is being used to feed the addiction. It just doesn't stop. No matter how much you lose or how many people you hurt, You're the last person to admit that you have an illness. You are in constant denial, lying to yourself and playing the blame game. They don't understand. They don't get it. Everyone is always judging me. You stress me out and cause me to gamble. You become your own worst enemy without even realizing it. It wasn't until I lost the trust of everyone that was there for me and was completely alone that I can see that something had to change. I really needed help. I just couldn't do it on my own. If you or anyone else you know needs help, please call the numbers on your screen. Remember, hope and help is available. Call today.
Shell Unleaded improves your fuel economy, giving increased miles per gallon, allowing you to do more of what you really want. Special additives used in Shell Unleaded improve your engine's efficiency. So go further with Shell Unleaded. Venture out to beaches, Junkanoo, and festivals and bring home memories that will last a lifetime. Shell, fueling journeys that matter.
Marlin Marine and Generac have the standby generator that fits your needs. Conserve power by using only 1 or 2 circuits during an outage with our 7.5 kilowatt, or manage your power usage with our 10 to 16 kilowatt standby. But why only power part of the house? Get whole house protection with our 20 kilowatt Generac standby and never lose power again. Give us a call at 393-7873 and get the right unit for you. Marlin Marine, giving you power on land and sea.
The government of the Bahamas presents The Courage to Rebuild, a National Hurricane Dorian Memorial Week, Friday, August 26th through Saturday, September 4th. On Friday in Abaco, a weather symposium featuring local and international weather experts. On Tuesday, August 30th, a focus on Hurricane Dorian and mental health. On Wednesday, August 31st, official updates on government repairs and the airing of the documentary The Courage to Rebuild. Thursday, September 1st, remembering the victims. You're encouraged to wear your Hurricane Dorian memorial pins for a small donation to go toward Hurricane Dorian reconstruction. Also on Thursday, a memorial service at the Friendship Tabernacle Church in Abaco and a wreath-laying ceremony along the SC Boodle Highway. Flags will fly at half-mast, a concert featuring international recording artist CeCe Winans. Friday, September 2nd, the Grand Bahama Memorial Concert at the New Life Worship Center featuring Grand Bahama's leading gospel artists. Saturday, September 3rd, the Abaco Memorial Concert at the Friendship Tabernacle featuring some of the country's leading gospel artists and those from Abaco. Sunday, September 4th, a wreath-laying ceremony in East Grand Bahama and a memorial service at Jubilee Cathedral. The National Hurricane Dorian Memorial Week, taking courage to rebuild.
Kids, let's go! Sean, what are you doing?
I solved it. We'll buy our life insurance policy from this company and then go over here and get our home insurance. Then get our motor policy from right over here.
Or we could just get it all with CG Atlantic. Save a lot of money and effort.
They do it all? Even pensions?
Even pensions.
We're like a husband that doesn't overcomplicate everything. CG Atlantic. Good like that.
Did you know that as a farmer registered with the Department of Agriculture, you can access duty-free concessions for imported items to be used on your farm? That means you can bring in farming tools and materials duty-free. Some examples of those items covered under this concession include packing materials, produce boxes, seeds, fertilizer, water pumps, fencing materials, and hydroponic systems. For more information on any of these incentives, please call the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family Island Affairs at 397-7400. That's 397-7400. For additional updates, you can follow the ministry on social media at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at MOAMRFIA Bahamas, where you can find weekly episodes of our Good to Grow segment, as well as our Good to Grow podcast. Did you know that registering your farm with the Department of Agriculture is currently free of charge? It comes with a wide range of benefits, such as assistance with feeder farm roads, land clearing, and tractor services, assistance with Department of Immigration for obtaining foreign farm labor at a reduced permit fee, access to fish and farm stores for agricultural input supplies, sale of produce at packing house, produce exchange, abattoir services at a reduced price, training at the Food Technology Laboratories, disaster relief assistance, and free veterinary extension services. For more information on any of these incentives, please call the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family Island Affairs at 397-7400. That's 397-7400. For additional updates, you can follow the ministry on social media at MOAMRFIA Bahamas,